Welcome back to California for the latest edition of the Saints Insider podcast. It is Friday, August 2nd. I am Luke Johnson, your NOLA.com Saints beat writer, and I'm joined today by Rod Walker making his Saints Insider California debut, at least on the podcast. Rod, how you doing today, man?
Yeah, doing good. Still enjoying this great California weather.
We are doing this outside at our Airbnb here today. We would not be doing this outside in New Orleans, or else you guys would be seeing all the sweat just rolling through my shirt right now. So For me, I'm pretty happy with this weather. I'll take it.
I'll take it too. I mean, I wish we could do this on the beach, but no Wi-Fi. So.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeff Duncan. He was suggesting that we go out there and show off our beach bodies, but we are not going to do that to y'all. You're welcome. And instead, we're going to talk about Saints camp. What we've seen out here, they're through 8 practices out here in Irvine. A couple more weeks to go before they're back home. Another week or so before they're playing a preseason game, but a lot of stuff to get to today. And before we really dive into all that, we want to get into some of the news that came out earlier this week. Jari Evans is going to be the latest inductee into the Saints Ring of Honor. It's a big honor for anybody, but I think especially for a player who played left guard his entire career. Maybe Jari Evans is not as well known as he should be, considering the caliber of player he was during his time here in New Orleans, but huge honor for the guy who's now currently an assistant coach on the Saints staff.
Yeah, I think this was a no-brainer. I mean, this is a guy that's, right on the cusp of making it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And when you look at this Ring of Honor, there's a distinction between the Ring of Honor and the Saints Hall of Fame. I mean, the Ring of Honor is a little bit more distinguished. You really have to kind of separate yourself to hang your name up in the rafters of the Superdome. And Jari definitely did that. I mean, he's a 6-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro, first-team All-Pro 4 times. So I mean, it was just about as easy of a choice as Drew Brees will be when his time to be in the Ring of Honor. So.
Yeah, made the all-decade team. Was clearly one of the best players at his position for a long, long time in the NFL. Really probably should be a Pro Football Hall of Famer if Jari Evans was a tackle or another a wide receiver who's a 6-time All-Pro. He'd be in there.
Right. It's one of those positions that just out of all the positions on the football field, I mean, guard probably gets overlooked more than any of them, maybe tight end. But, yeah, he just plays one of those positions, but definitely was the best one, doing it during his time. So
I want to kind of tee you up a little bit on this because you brought up an interesting question. We were just kind of shooting the stuff in the apartment over here. I mean, Jari is a pretty clear player who's like deserving of this sort of honor. But it makes you kind of think. I mean, they've had a lot of guys since that 2006 team that made the NFC Championship run and that whole run of success with Sean Payton and Drew Brees. A lot of guys who you think are some of the all-time greats in this franchise. So, like, it kind of got us thinking, like, who else might be going up there?
Yeah. But before I get to the current players on the roster, I think, and I've written this column, I think maybe 2 years ago, but I think the Dome Patrol should be in the Ring of Honor. I just think what they did for this franchise, when nobody else was talking about the Saints, they were talking about the Dome Patrol. And, you look at Ricky Jackson's already up there, but and Sam Mills is up there. He was, inducted up last year or 2 years ago, whenever it was. But I think you have to get Pat Swilling and Von Johnson, just put them all up there together, man. Give the Dome Patrol their own banner or something. But so to me, Pat Swilling, I think he's just an obvious guy that needs to be up there. But I think you just put those guys up there collectively, and I think you've done them justice and done what should be done.
Absolutely iconic group with the best poster of all time.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better than the old Dome Patrol poster. Yeah. Anybody else that you kind of like caught your eye, or somebody who you think is deserving of that honor? Because it's limited space up there.
Yeah, you want to make it special. You want to keep it special. So let me just run down who's already up there. Tom Benson's up there, Sam Mills, Ricky Jackson,
Archie
Manning, Morton Anderson, Willie Roaf, Will Smith. And I feel like I'm leaving out one person. I can't remember who it is. No, that's it.
That's it.
And Jari's going to be the 8th one. So, yeah, I mean, so that tells you.
A lot of Hall of Famers.
A lot of Hall of Famers, post-Hall of Famers.
Archie Manning obviously is, for a long time was kind of synonymous with the organization. Drew Brees will be up there eventually.
Yeah, and Breeze is going into the Saints Hall of Fame this year, which is kind of the first step, and then you go in there first, and then you get your way into the Ring of Honor. So, yeah,
I think there's one clear cut
current
guy
guy.
on the current team.
Oh, no doubt about it. I think Cam Jordan's he could not play another down of football, and he'd be up there. I think he's the obvious one. I mean, franchise's all-time leader in sacks, so you have to put Cam up there. And then it gets a little tricky, I think. I mean, because you got guys. I'll start with DeMario. I mean, he's what's this year 7 for DeMario here?
Yeah, this will be year 7 because he and I got on he joined the Saints right when I was starting covering the team. So
I think he's made 5 All-Pro teams, 1 first team, and the other one was second team. But I mean, you look at what he's done for this franchise on the field, and just what he's done for the city of New Orleans, and what he's done for that locker room. I think he's really close. I mean, if he can string together 2 more great seasons like he's had, I think you have to seriously consider him, putting him up there. And he's a guy that, outside of Drew Brees, I would say that DeMario's, the best free agent signing this franchise has ever had. So I think he gets strong consideration. He's probably my next guy.
One guy that, and we're kind of going back to older teams, one guy that I don't think is going to go up there, but man, it's just like really hard to make the case against it. I mean, Marcus Colston.
Yeah.
But he's the guy. I don't even think he's eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame because he never made a Pro Bowl.
Never made a Pro Bowl. Yeah. So that was. I think it depends on what you want this Ring of Honor to be. If you want it to be, the greatest players in Saints history, I mean, I think Colston goes up there. But you look at the accolades. I mean, he just league wide, he didn't really have those.
Yeah.
So I think that might, it just depends on what.
It just kind of dings him a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's still holding all the receiving records, at least all the career receiving records. And Michael Thomas is no longer on the team.
Yeah. Another guy, I don't know if he'll get there. It depends on how his career finishes. But I think Kamara, man, I think just what he's done, how beloved he is in this city. If he can, kind of like DeMario, I think he has to put some more good years on the end of his career. But he's a guy that I could see making it if he finishes really
if he bounces back a little bit here and resolves his contract issue and all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, but I like where you're at. Keep an eye out for Rod will have a column up on that probably later on this week, I'm imagining. Yeah, maybe early next week. All right, let's actually get into why we're out here right now. Saints training camp, they just wrapped up their 8th practice. And I've been there for all 8. You've been there for most of them. We've seen a lot of guys kind of perform at the levels we were expecting them to perform. A couple guys maybe underperform a little bit. And then there are some guys who I think have just really, we were going in not really sure what to expect, or maybe not expecting much at all. And they've really made their names known. And we're not going to get into Mason Tipton, who I think we've spent a lot of time talking about. And I think he's cooled off a little bit after his hot start. But some guys who just kind of consistently caught our eye. And the first guy I want to talk to you about, because I know you talked a lot about this guy before training camp, you were really looking forward to seeing him, is tight end Dallin Holker, the undrafted rookie free agent from Colorado State. We kind of knew coming in that he was a pass-first tight end, a receiving tight end, who had an opportunity with Juwan Johnson being out with a foot injury, and maybe needed to show what he could do as a blocker. But I think through 8 practices, I think he's shown enough that he is at the very least very much in the mix for a roster spot and maybe something a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, if we were doing our 53-man prediction right now, he would be one of my guys on it. It did help that Juwan was absent. I mean, he's able to get a lot of reps.
Opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Foster Moreau is getting most of the reps, with the ones, but he's played really well. I mean, he's making catch. He made a really good catch today in practice, and it's sort of the same things that we saw, just watching his YouTube. Like I keep telling you about, I watched all of his YouTube clips from college, and he was just really impressive, making plays. And that's something that Dennis Allen talked about. It's he's just one of those guys that's just a football player. He's a little undersized, but he gets it done. And those kind of guys usually stick because he's able to just stack days, and those are the guys that make these rosters.
Yeah, I don't think I've gone back and looked at his RAS score, like we do with all the draft picks. Are they above a 9, like most of them? So I can't say for certain what Holker's athletic testing numbers were, but one of the things that stood out was Dennis brought that up today. He said he's not the biggest guy, he's not the greatest athlete, he's not super sudden, but he knows how to play ball.
Yeah.
And I think that shows up when you're out there watching him, settle into empty spots and zones, use his body to beat defenders in man coverage. I think the guy can play.
Yeah, and he has really good hands too. I mean, I think to me that's the one thing that really stands out about him, just his hands. And again, going back to some of the tapes I watched from his YouTube videos, I mean, and they were playing somebody in the snow, and he was like catching balls in the snow. I mean, he's just an impressive
Which
guy.
Rod can't understand that.
Right, I don't have it.
Mississippi guy never had to play ball in the snow.
Right. So yeah, I mean, so I think he's a guy that's really, really impressed. And to me, the tight end room is pretty thin without Juwan, and you need another guy. And right now, I think I think he's the other guy.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Michael Jacobson might steal some of those snaps coming into camp. He's a guy who's with the team and during last season as a member of the practice squad. I thought had a really nice offseason program, but I think Dallin Holker is firmly ahead of Michael Jacobson in this right now. And really, I mean, if you're looking at this offense when they need a guy to go catch passes as a tight end, clearly the number one option right now. Foster Moreau has a role on the team, but that is not it.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be primarily Foster will be primarily a guy who can really block for you and all that. But yeah, this is his job to.
Yeah. And and I think he's shown some growth as a blocker too, or at least he's made some plays that kind of stood out and caught my eye. I saw him today put Pete Werner on the ground on a block. He pancaked him, which was pretty impressive. I think Pete Werner's had a really good camp, and he also kind of like sealed the edge on a run to the opposite side of the field where he just prevented Chase Young from doing like a chase down. So I think he's by far not a complete finished product as a blocker, but he gives you enough there to where he's not just a one-dimensional player on the field.
Yeah, and we haven't really had a chance to talk to him during camp yet. But I think he's a guy, because I don't know how much blocking he actually did in college. So, I mean, this might be something that's kind of foreign to him. But I think he's a guy that can definitely learn how to do it. And obviously, he'll have to bulk up a little bit in the offseason, going into the year two. But I think it's something that he'll be able to do.
Okay. Another guy on the offense that both of us have liked is running back Jordan Mims. And this is another thing. A guy gets an opportunity, and he shows what he can do with it. So very first practice of the year, or of training camp, rather, Kendre Miller goes down with a hamstring injury within the first 5 minutes of practice during individual. Created a void. And they've had Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams as their 1-2, and which is understandable. But Jordan Mims has kind of pretty steadily been number 3, and even lately has started to steal some reps at the first team. So what have you seen from him that you've liked?
I've been really impressed. And, you mentioned Kendre Miller. I mean, it's pretty obvious from talking to DA that he isn't happy with Kendre Miller's history of injuries. I mean, it just keep piling up. And I know the other day DA said, you can't make the roster if you're in the training room. And it was, he was talking about Kendre Miller. So Kendre Miller's not doing himself any favors right now. I mean, and Jordan Mims is actually taking advantage of his opportunities. And he's looked really good. And I mean, I think going back to the 53-man roster, I mean, I don't know how you leave him off right now. I mean, he just played that well so far in practice.
I'm really looking forward to seeing him in preseason games. I bet he's going to get a ton of run. Wouldn't surprise me if they sat both Kamara and Jamal Williams for those games, at least the first one. Which could mean we can see Jordan Mims as a starting running back, and not running behind a first team offensive line, but we could see him get a lot of opportunity. And I think the thing I really like about him is he is a fit for this scheme. And you want running backs, and you're running this wide zone scheme, to be patient. They have vision, but once it's there, to hit it hard. And I think we see that pretty much again and again from him. It's not perfect every time, but he has ripped off a number of explosive runs. I think he's shown some natural ability as a pass catcher out of the backfield. And maybe the only thing that we haven't really seen a lot of him, and frankly, it's because we're not really looking at this a lot, is whether he can pass block.
Right.
So we'll get a look at that too.
And I did get a chance to watch some of the pass block today. It was basically running backs against the linebackers, the tight ends against the linebackers, and I don't know what his numbers were, but I know overall the tight ends did. I thought the tight ends did a better job of blocking the linebackers. It seems like the running backs sort of struggled in that today. So it was just good to see at least the tight ends were doing well in that category.
Yeah. And I'll kind of put this question to you the same way I put it to Matt. Like, how do you look at this if you're putting together a 53-man roster? You've got 3 guys who they've invested a good bit in, and Jamal Williams is not cheap. Alvin Kamara is certainly not cheap, and Kendra Miller you just drafted with the 71st overall pick last year. Do you keep 4 running backs to make sure you got Jordan Mims on the roster if he keeps performing at this level? Do you have to make a tough decision on one of those guys ahead of him right now, or one of those guys who they've invested in? Like, how do you view
that? Based on just the way Dennis Allen talked, I mean, it was a level of frustration with Dennis that he doesn't normally say stuff like, "You can't make this roster if you're hurt." Like he doesn't usually call players out as much as he has with Kendra. So just his level of frustration makes me think that, that he's almost like tired of it. So I think Kendra needs to get back, and he needs to get back soon. I mean, you can't rush back from an injury, but you do need to get back and show what you can do and put some good tape out there, because if not, you're not gonna make this team. And Kendra is a guy who, at the end of last season, I thought he looked good.
We were all really excited about him coming into the season.
Right, but at some point, I mean, you just gotta be on the field.
You gotta play. You gotta play. One of the things that we've kind of talked about is, like, maybe you can get by if Kendra is not ready for the start of the season. You want to give him another opportunity. You want to see what he can do in this offense in particular. Maybe you can do something where you don't keep a fullback on your initial 53. You're able to put Kendra Miller on IR if he needs to, and then elevate one of the fullbacks in the practice squad. There's ways around this. They can keep 4 running backs on the 53-man roster. It's not something we typically see them do, but if they really like Jordan Mims, if they like him as much as we like him, they can find a way to do it. So we will see how that plays out. The last one, I want to go to a guy on the defensive side of the ball who just, like, consistently throughout training camp, he's either making plays in the backfield or you're hearing his position coach shouting at him, telling him he's doing a good job, and that is linebacker Anthony Orji. I personally was really excited about Orji when they signed him last year, just about his prospects, because he was a big-time college player at Vandy. Put up a lot of numbers there. You could see the athleticism, but last year just didn't really – it was first year in a new defensive system. It didn't really pan out for him in training camp last year. Didn't make the roster, spent the whole year on the practice squad, but it seemed to be a different case for the player this year.
Yeah, and he talked today for the first time, and one of the things he talked about was just getting more comfortable. And I think, and even Isaiah Foskey said the same thing. These guys, they come in that first year, they make mistakes, and those mistakes, like, kind of eat those guys up almost. And it's like they don't really know how to handle it.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, look, Foskey's probably been the best player on his team from Pee Wee ball through college.
Right.
Orji probably the same way. and you get to the NFL, and then everybody's really, really, really good, and all of a sudden you're the 50th best player on the roster, and mistakes start to magnify.
Yeah, and both of those guys, I'm going back to Foskey, but also Orgeron, he talked today about how he talked to counselors and these mental experts, these people that like just the mental part of the game is something he felt like he struggled with. I think we heard it with same thing with Trevor Penning. Those guys, that stuff gets in their head. And I think once they get past that and can just play football and not, he knows where he's supposed to be. He doesn't let mistakes bother him now. So he's just actually playing a little, just playing a little freer, I think. And I think it makes these guys better.
Yeah, Dennis Allen alluded to that today too. When you are out there and you're unsure of yourself, you're unsure where you're supposed to be on a defensive play, and you're thinking about your mistakes, these guys are all supreme athletes. But, I mean, Orgy, the reason they liked him out of Vandy is because he was a great athlete there. He was a guy I know for sure was like a 9. Even if you're a great athlete, if you're out there on the field thinking and not reacting, it slows you down, and you can't let that athleticism show. And I think we're seeing now, look, Orgy's playing weak side linebacker, he's playing strong side linebacker, he's playing Mike linebacker. That's all 3 positions they have at linebacker. So he understands the defense, and he's getting an opportunity to play, and he's doing stuff with it. And
I've been here 6 days, y'all been here 8 days, but I think every day in practice I heard either Demario wasn't here today, but somebody like saying his name after play, and you're like, okay, yeah, he's doing his thing. So he's playing well.
Yeah, I agree.
I think all the linebackers are playing well.
I agree, and that's going to be a really we talked about Jordan Mims and a difficult decision. I mean, they're going to have a really tough decision on their hands at linebacker, because I think they got 3 guys who are clearly going to make the team in Demario, Pete Werner.
DeMarco's playing well.
DeMarco Jackson, they're I think it was a 5th round pick a couple years ago, 2022.
2022,
yeah. So this is his 3rd season in the system. They got Jalen Ford, who I think was a 6th round pick this last year, who early in camp was getting some like walkthrough time with the first team, kind of behind DeMario, but still he's been playing there. They signed Khalid Hudson to a deal. I think Isaiah Stallbird has done some nice things. They're going to have some tough decisions to make there, and really special teams is probably where that's going to come down to. But a lot of good players there.
Yeah, I mean, they call themselves the heartbeat and the coffee of this.
The coffee of the defense.
They're
that's
the one
right.
who make it go, and they've looked the part, so far in training camp.
All right, let's talk about today's practice. Look, they had an off day on Thursday. They came back today at Friday, and the 2 days leading up to the off day, Tuesday and Wednesday, defense completely dominated those practices. Pass rush, just making life miserable on the quarterbacks. Rushing lanes were nowhere to be found. They looked dominant. Today we had a little bit of a bounce back effort from the offense, and I think one of the things that really stood out to me when I was watching all that unfold is like the backup quarterback race is a lot more interesting maybe than we thought it would be coming into this. I think Jake Haener was clearly ahead of Spencer Rattler after the mini camp and OTAs and all that, but it's close now, and both of those guys are out there balling today.
Yeah, I think if the Saints had to, if Derek Carr went down today, I think, and the Saints went out there, I think Haener would, I think he'd get the nod now because he's been, he's just his 2nd year. But it is a new scheme, so I mean that does, that plays in Rattler's favor. I mean, they're kind of even when it comes to the scheme. But those guys they're playing a lot better. Before the training camp started, I was like, I don't know if you want to you don't want to go into a game with either of these guys as your starter. But now I feel a little bit more comfortable with either of those guys. I mean, you're not going to be a playoff team with those 2 guys, but I do feel like they can probably move the offense a little bit better than I probably thought, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it won't be like that 2020 game when Ian Book came in and started with a whole backup team.
Right.
I think both of these guys are really talented in different ways. You can see, I hate to say this because I kind of hate the term, but like the arm talent there with Spencer Rattler is really different. And he has complete confidence in that arm to just kind of sling it into like tough throws. Sometimes I think that's going to get him in trouble. I think we'll probably see that in the preseason, especially with an offense that likes to run like a lot of in-breaking stuff, a lot of throws over the middle. I think you're probably going to see a pick or two. It was a problem that we saw with him in the summer during the mini camp and OTAs. He's thrown a lot of picks, but like clearly learned from that experience. He still trusts his arm, but I think he's dialed it back a little bit. We're seeing like a really confident player go out there and play well.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, in these preseasons, and again, we were watching them go up against themselves. So, you know, you got to kind of take that with a grain
That's
of
right.
salt.
Yeah,
But
they could
I don't wanna
go out there against Arizona
I
and
don't want
look
anybody
completely
saying,
terrible. Yeah.
Rod said they could play without Derek Carr and go to Super Bowl. That's
Right.
not what I'm saying. But I mean, I think the preseason is going to be really interesting because you got both of these guys who are battling for a spot, and I mean, and they're both, like you said, pretty even. So these preseason games are going to really be pretty, I mean, more intriguing than they've probably been in the past, just because of the quarterback play. You're going to be watching them. They got, you know, they got rid of Nathan Peterman, so it's just a three-man. I mean, it's three guys in red jerseys now, and we know Carr is a starter, so these other two guys are battling for a position.
Yeah, and everybody knew going into this that it was going to
Yeah.
be those two behind Derek Carr.
Right.
And Nathan Peterman was there to be kind of help him along in this offense because he's been in it before. Give him a little bit of a camp arm, but I think he knew that the odds of him beating out one of the fourth round pick
Right.
from 2022 or 2023 and the fifth round pick from this year's class probably limited.
Right.
Yeah. But like before we kind of move on, I do want to talk about Haener a little bit, and I think this is playing out a lot like kind of the way we thought it would, just in the sense of their strong traits playing out. Rattler's got a great arm, very confident player, and I think you see that play out. He attempts maybe some throws that other people wouldn't try, but they look really, really good when he completes them. Whereas Haener is definitely like a really smart player who's going to take what the defense gives him. But like, I think the confidence that both of those players have is what makes them good. And Haener is a supremely confident player, almost a cocky player.
Yeah.
It's really fun to watch him. Like today, he beat the defense for a touchdown on a quarterback draw, like 5'11", 195-pound Jake Haener, whatever he is, taking a quarterback draw for a touchdown. He was high stepping his way back to the huddle. Like that guy thinks he probably thinks he's the number one quarterback on the team right now.
Yeah.
Even if he clearly is not.
But he had that confidence last year.
He
When
did.
you talked to him, and he was, he believes in what he can do, and that's what you need. I mean, you don't want a guy who he doesn't have to go through what these other guys we mentioned about and make a mistake and gets in their head. He doesn't get in his head. I mean, he feels like he could go in there and start tomorrow if they needed him to, and that's what you want to see. So, yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's, I think he has a chance to be a good quarterback.
I think so too. And
just to update him on the skin cancer.
Oh yeah, that's right. So he will. He's going in for an operation on Monday to get the skin cancer looked at. He's been kind of practicing with a bandage on the right side of his face the whole time he's been out here. So the operation is going to take place Monday. They have he's not expected to practice Monday. They have an off day Tuesday, and then they're expecting him to be back out there on Wednesday. So,
and that's it. That in itself says a lot about him. I mean, we wouldn't, if he didn't have the bandage, we wouldn't have even known about it. I mean, he's dealing with that, but he's handling it fine.
Yeah, you can't notice. You can't tell on the field outside of the bandage. I do want to say that we bring up the backup quarterback stuff because it is an important position on the team. It's really fun watching these guys duke it out. There's no chance either of them wins the job for the starting quarterback out of camp. I think Derek Carr has been up and down, but I think he's still clearly the number one option there.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think he'll, unless this season just goes down the drain, I don't see any way that he's not starting, all 17 games.
I agree. He's clearly the number one quarterback, and that's the way it's going to be, unless, like you said, just it completely takes a turn for the worse this year. All right, let's wrap it up here, Rod. I've been out there for 8 practices. You've been out there for 6. What's like the single thing that you have taken away from those 6 practices where you're saying, like, that's really interesting to me? I'm really interested to see where this goes when the season progresses.
I think for me is, I think Carl Granderson's played really well, and I think what Chase Young brings to this defense could really be something that we're talking about like a lot through this season. I mean, I think he's that much of a difference maker. I'll even add, like, I mean, I know it's a linebacker, but like Willie Gay's athleticism, like I just think those two guys make this defense so much better. And I don't know if we realized how much better when they signed the two. I don't think we didn't really get that fired up about those two.
No, I mean, we're talking about two players assigned for a combined $18 million on 1 year contracts.
Right.
Year.
I mean, that's, well, again, I mean, we got to see what the offense does, but I think the defense has a chance to be really good.
Chase Young has really opened my eyes,
Yeah,
I think, because like I've always known, his reputation, and obviously he was an absolute stud game wrecker as a rookie, but he hasn't been that player since 2020, right? That was his rookie season. So up and down, sometimes good, sometimes not so good, sometimes called out for effort, not really living up to his potential. I thought that might be kind of what we see out here. Flash every now and then, otherwise he's not super noticeable on the field outside of like being 6'5". But man, he has been a force every single day out there at practice
with the motor. I mean, it's been nonstop.
Yeah,
man. There's no. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he turns the switch off when the season starts or what, but he has not turned the switch off during practice, and he's talking and letting people know how good he is. Kind of, not like in a cocky way, but like saying, hey, like he was telling Dennis Allen the other day, like, hey, you better get somebody to come chip because one person can't block me. Is basically what he was saying, and it's been kind of true.
Yeah, look, he is playing like a player who is motivated to prove people wrong right now, and if he's able to maintain that, I think they could have something really, really special on their hands at defensive end. We'll see. He's got to show it during the regular season, but the early returns have been very, very promising. I'm going to go on the offensive side of the ball. I think their run game is going to be really good this year. I've been really pleased with what I've seen from them, with just opening up big holes for the running backs and giving them room to run and make somebody miss in the open field. Just on the virtue of that, I think we've seen Alvin Kamara look really explosive, which has been surprising to me because I think the last couple of years we haven't seen the explosive version of Alvin Kamara. And I was wondering if that's him, if that's the system he's playing in, if he's beat up, whatever the case is he declining? He looks fast out there, and he's hitting those things hard. In just about every practice, it seems like he's busting out a run of 15, 20 yards. We haven't seen a 20-yard run from Alvin Kamara for 2 years.
Right.
So I think that has been really eye-opening for me. I think they will actually be a good running team this year. Maybe not like a top 5, but maybe. And if they could get to top 10, top 12, that opens up literally everything they want to do offensively. And we've seen them build everything they've done so far off the run, off the wide zone, and everything else. They've done a lot of end arounds, a lot of reverses, a lot of pre-snap motions, so many play action passes. And it's all built off that run game. If they can get that going, if it's actually going to look good once they line up against other teams, I think they have a chance to be a really special offense this year.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so looking forward to these preseason games. I just hate to get excited about stuff when they're playing each other. I want to see them.
Yeah, and they're not fully tackling each other, and you don't really exactly